Hey everyone, welcome back with Ermac, where today we are going to start a new playthrough of Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. I've already done quite a few here. I'm actually already re-uploaded my one with Reptile not too long ago, so hopefully you guys aren't too burnt out on the Shaolin Monks playthroughs here. And yeah, I am going to be talking through cutscenes because I have done like 3 of them at this point already, but there's a few more characters I want to do full story modes with. Baraka is obviously our next one here. I'm also going to do Katana and then probably end off with Noob Saibot down the road. I was thinking of playing as Ermac at one point, but yeah, he's just not someone that's very fun to play as in this game, unfortunately, due to the limited amount of moves that he has. But that said, though, we're going to do with Baraka, who should be a pretty fun character. He's got some pretty interesting combos, a very unique moveset, just like Reptile. So we're going to see how things go with him. And I think Baraka, in a lot of ways, especially after, the 3D era, I think he's kind of took up the mantle of, a jobber, kind of like Reptile has. Someone that the fans absolutely love, a beloved character who, unfortunately, just in the story modes just kind of gets embarrassed on a consistent basis. And it's really just because he's on the side of evil and stuff like that, and no villain and freaking modern Mortal Kombat can freaking look tough in any way. Not even the main ones anymore. But that said, for the question of the day here, do you guys think Baraka deserves better story-wise? Because in MK11 he had a little bit of a comeback due to him kind of joining the forces of good and Katana and stuff like that. But, before that, I think he was kind of like him and Reptile were, the resident. Him, Reptile, and Shiva, I feel like, were the 3 antagonists that were just constantly humiliated by anybody and everybody in MK9's story. And, obviously, he had the embarrassing defeat from Devora and MK10 and stuff like that, so he was always a very popular character, and it seemed like in Deception especially, they were kind of leaning on his popularity as, being one of the main characters of that game to kind of draw audiences in and, get back. He was one of the classic characters that they were pushing at the time. Characters like him, Sindel, Ermac, to try and sell the game of Deception. So him and Melina in particular were involved in a lot in that kind of marketing, and their fight in the Beetle Lair was pretty cool, and they had a pretty interesting rivalry that I liked in that game as well. But it felt like that was kind of like the most story-wise that Baraka ever really had, as far as his relevance inside of it. Other than that, he was always up to this point, he always had his rivalry with Kung Lao, in which he would end up on the losing end of it. And somehow in MK Gold, he was cut in half, right down the middle, with the blade slice, or body slice, or whatever it is. The same fatality Kung Lao uses in this game. And then he came back in MK Gold, and he's literally held together by staples, and I think Quan Chi brought him back to life using some sort of sorcery of some kind with those staples, and that was definitely his worst look I've ever seen of Baraka in the series. MK Gold. He looks like such a doofus. But that said, I mean, it was kind of cool to see him come back, and it was one other case of, death not really meaning much in Mortal Kombat and stuff like that. But it was always weird to me it took so long. I think it was after MK2, I think it wasn't until MK Trilogy when he came back. I could be wrong, and maybe he was in Ultimate MK3, but I don't think he was. Because I think they were having disputes with, the motion capture actors and stuff like that of the first 2 games, so they didn't bring him back. But then I think they eventually brought him back in MK Trilogy, who I think it would be the same guy. Because, I think it's when they added, an unused move animation to Baraka, where he spins in place with his blades hanging out and stuff like that, that was supposed to be in MK2 and just wasn't for some reason. But I'm not really sure how that whole thing went down. course, we got a beautiful recreation of the pit. See, that's what I loved about the PS2 era with games, is you could see the real vision of what they were trying to do back in the day, you know, not just with Mortal Kombat, but for Resident Evil as well, in which, you know, they kind of updated the character models, and you could see what the vision of what they had for these characters, as the stages, the areas, instead of them trying to completely revamp and redo everything and stuff like that in modern games with all the remakes and remasters and stuff. Which, you know, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. You know, I like seeing reimagined areas, and, you know, MK9 did a fantastic job at doing that. You know, reimagining and all the characters and areas and stuff like that. Did an amazing job of it. But there's definitely, all I'm saying is there's definitely a charm to seeing, you know, the pit, what it looked like in the 2D era, and now seeing it as a full-fledged area connected to Goro's lair. And I don't know, it's just beautiful in my opinion. You get a nice shot at the moon there, and you can see things fly by every now and then. If you shoot the moon, you actually unlock a secret, like I think it's just concept art and stuff like that. But that's something I also miss about this stuff, was you got concept art and behind the scenes videos, all sorts of bonus stuff on the PS2 era that, you know, some games still have, but it's just not really the same. Especially since, you know, in the 3D era, MK, you know, they were awesome with it, because they would actually explain to you what the concept art means, the idea behind it, maybe why it didn't work in some cases. So, I mean, it was just awesome. But I'm sure most people don't really actually care about that kind of stuff anyway, other than me. But growing up as a kid, I freaking loved it. And it still fascinates me to this day. That's probably why I'm so into, like, you know, unused stuff and betas and all that sort of stuff. Mortal Kombat freaking prepped me for it. Ooh, that's a pretty cool move. Yeah, Baraka definitely has a lot of cool, unique moves where he uses his blades, which just makes it all the more tragic that these characters, you know, like Baraka, Katana, Reptile, and Johnny Cage, they have unique moves and combos and everything. I mean, it's just such a waste to have them just be available in the freaking versus mode instead of, because I mean, other than not having Multalities and Brutalities, they work perfectly fine, just with a few glitches here and there, but you know, it's what to be expected, you know. Ooh, that was a pretty cool fatality. Interesting take on his blade lift. I don't know if I'm going to remember that combination, though. Ah, jeez, he just smacked me upside the back of the head. Yeah, it's amazing how, like, this is a really disturbing scene, and yet they somehow managed to make it hilarious at the same time. They're literally eating that dude, and yet, you know, their shenanigans. It's just so funny, the Oni. Come on, get over here, fellas. Alright, let's get out of here. I don't really want to waste your guys' time on this kind of stuff. I'm just showing. The main purpose of this is just to kind of, you know, have fun, play through the game, but also just to show off, you know, the new characters you can play as and stuff like that with the GameShark codes, which, of course, the GameShark codes for how to do this stuff, oh, alright, I completely missed that. I don't know how. I don't even know what happened with that, but whatever. We'll just take them out the old-fashioned way with our fists. But yeah, I use PCSX, so that's like I'll have the GameShark codes, I'll have the PCSX2 codes that you would need to be able to play as these guys. So I'm not selfish when it comes to these codes. There's nothing more irritating than when you find like a video of like a cool hack or something like that online, and then the guy doesn't have anything in the description or the comment section or anything like that. and then you try and ask for it in the comment section and you get no reply as to how they, you know, did the code or whatever like that. Alright, I guess somehow that guy didn't go into the spikes. But I gotta say, I think Shaolin Monks overall, probably the best interpretation of the setting of Mortal Kombat, you know, with the pit and Goro's Lair being together. You know, the Wuxi Academy was pretty cool that they added there, but you know, that was only in freaking, you know, Liu Kang and Kung Lao's intros and bios and endings and stuff like that. Was an actual ending stage. Although the Warrior Shrine was from MK1, so it's kind of weird that it's in the Wuxi Academy. But hey, I mean, it's cool that they added that. I don't know who I'm gonna do it as, but eventually at some point I am gonna, you know, 100% complete this game with you know, one of these characters that I play as. Baraka's not gonna be it though. Alright, we just gotta take out these guys. But we don't have to play fair. You can be cheap and just throw them off. With that said, folks, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Check out next week's episode on Fighting Friday, but above all else, please remember to have a nice day.